27 Club, a cultural phenomenon which when first told to me at about 13 automatically filled my head with intrigue and romanticisation. I'd have conversations about how cool the likes of Hendrix and Cobain were, and how real art comes from struggle and those who have some inner demons or feeling which the common person doesn't have. It allows them to create great music and art. But what came with this, as I got older into my teenage years, I would find myself increasingly leaning to creative outlets, studying art, falling in love with English at school, and photography, something I have loved from an early age. However, what wouldn't come into my life was the inner feeling of misery and depression which so many of these greats, and specifically the 27 Club, seem to have, whether it was from childhood experiences, drugs, or just general feeling towards life. I wasn't one of those kids who hated school and had little friends like Kurt Cobain. I didn't have a terrible home life and have to fight prejudice like Hendrix. I'm just a middle-class kid who dreams of one day being a famous writer or director, someone who creates art which people will read or watch and think that's shit or that's brilliant. But having so many of those I look up to have something which I don't, and something I don't think I want, I have begun to feel that perhaps I am not a creative. But this is the complete wrong way to think, and is something which has been glamorized by so many and is wrong. We shouldn't look to the 27 Club and those of similar ilk as role models. We should look at them as people who had a gift, but also had very sad problems, which were not directly linked to their talent, and that if only they could have found a way to fight them and get help, they would not have wasted so much of that talent which they were given.
What kind of a peace do I mean, and what kind of a peace do we seek?
The story of where the 27 Club originated was with the American blues guitarist named Robert Johnson. He only had 2 recording sessions, with one in San Antonio in 1936 and one in Dallas in 1937, with him creating a culmination of 29 songs produced by Don Law, a famous country music producer. However, what would come at the age of 27, just 1 year after his last recording, was his death. This is where some believe the legend of the 27 Club began, as after his death, tales began to be told as very little is known of him or his death, and therefore springing the belief that he sold his soul to the devil at a crossroads, in return being given musical talent, but the devil taking his life at 27. However, this is almost likely folk tales, but what isn't? That a collection of his records released by Columbia Records in 1961 titled The King of Delta Blues Singers, and will be heavily credited as inspiration by such artists as Eric Clapton, Keith Richards, Bob Dylan, and Robert Plant, both for his lyrical construction and his guitar style. Although where many would have first heard of the 27 Club and what brought into the limelight of the masses was when in the years between 1969 and 1971, Brian Jones of the Rolling Stones, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin and Jim Morrison would all pass away at the age of 27, marking the age forever with death and great artists. With the ultimate culmination of the phenomena coming with Kurt Cobain's untimely passing in 1994 at the age of 27, cementing the club's lure in pop culture. To truly understand the 27 Club and all that is tied in with it, we must look at the trope of the tortured artist. A tortured artist is an artist who is constantly tormented by their art, and often people around them or the world itself. They have the feeling that their work is great, and the world will not accept them, or the complete opposite, that the work will not conform to what they want it to be. The trope is believed to have been started by Plato, and is a very romanticised thing within our society, at least to those who do not have the affliction. So much so that even I have fallen into the trap of the allure of a writer like Kerouac, who lived a great exciting life, but to him it was often filled with misery and hurt, whilst often, like many others, I seem to admire it. However, the most famous is Vincent van Gogh, who famously cut off his ear and would go on to create a great painting around it. But this had nothing to do with his creative vision, and is something we should look at in today's age as sad, not glorious. Now we can look at artists like Van Gogh and realise that their mental health was clearly not good, with Van Gogh being diagnosed with psychosis, and most likely, many of the 27 Club having their own afflictions, which should not be praised as catalysts for art, but as killers of human being, who didn't get to give their talent and their life fully to the world and their loved ones. To conclude on this topic is to say clearly that to die at 27 through a drug overdose or suicide or in any way is not a glorious thing which adds to the legacy of a creator's art, but it's to take away a human being who has so much to offer to the world and should not be glamorized for people to have as a goal. Rather, we should look to help and save those who feel afflictions of mental illness, or going through tough times, as whilst Hendrix may have been a rock star, he left his brother behind. Whilst Morrison was a lizard king, he left his brothers alone, and whilst Cobain was the voice of a generation, his voice would never be given to his daughter. What sums this up perfectly is Noel Gallagher's lyric, "Please don't put your life in the hands of a rock and roll band and watch it fade away."